I knew my boyfriend's only deal breaker was emotional games. I played one anyway, and it cost me everything. Jet's been gone for 3 days, and the silence in this apartment is a physical presence. It's not a peaceful quiet, it's the heavy, suffocating kind that presses in on you, thick with the ghosts of sounds you're still expecting to hear. The scrape of his chair at the kitchen table, his low hum when he's making coffee, the jingle of his keys in the bowl by the door. I keep waiting for them, and their absence is a constant, fresh shock. I walked into our bedroom this morning, and the closet is a cavern. His side is just a collection of sad, empty hangers. His scent, that clean sandalwood and soap smell, is already fading, and I buried my face in the one sweatshirt he left behind, a worn-out gray one, trying to inhale a memory. In the bathroom, the void is smaller but sharper. His mint toothpaste is gone from the holder, leaving my strawberry one looking lonely and childish. It's such a small thing, but for 3 years they've sat side by side. Seeing it alone this morning, I actually felt my stomach drop. And the kitchen, that stupid mug I got him for his birthday, the one with the goofy golden retriever that looked just like the dog he had as a kid, is missing from its hook. He used it every single morning. Its absence makes the whole room feel wrong, like a stranger's apartment. There was no goodbye note, no dramatic, screenshotted text conversation for my friends to analyze. Just this quiet, methodical erasure of himself from our life. His last words play on a loop in my head, a flat, tired mantra of my own failure. Brielle, I told you my only red line was this. His voice wasn't angry, it was worse, it was exhausted. At the time, I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for the real fight to start, thinking he was being so dramatic. I honestly thought he'd cool off and be back by morning. Now, this quiet apartment is just screaming at me, mocking me, telling me how stupid I was. How monumentally, catastrophically stupid. It's twisted, but the thing that hurts the most right now is remembering how good it was, how easy. Jet was a physical therapist, and his entire personality was an extension of his job, patient, steady, and focused on healing. With him, there were no games, no subtext. No reading between the lines until your eyes blurred. He just said what he meant, always. After my last relationship with Ryan, which ended with me in therapy trying to decode years of emotional withholding, meeting Jet felt like breathing clean air after being trapped in a smoky room. Ryan would punish me with silence for days over perceived slights I couldn't even identify. I once spent a week walking on eggshells, my stomach in knots, only to find out he was mad because I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee. With Jet, if I was 5 minutes late, he'd just say, "Hey, I was getting a little worried. Everything okay?" The relief was intoxicating. He was my safe harbor. And I wasn't hiding my baggage from him. Early on, I told him about Ryan, about how that relationship had hardwired this ugly, insecure thing into my brain. This compulsive need to test people, to poke at the foundations of a relationship just to make sure they were solid, even if the poking itself was what created the cracks. I confessed this to him on a rainy Tuesday night, curled up against his chest, bracing myself for him to flinch, to see me as broken goods. But he just listened, stroking my hair, his silence a comforting blanket, not a weapon. He never judged me for it. He just saw it as a wound, another injury that needed careful handling. But he did draw one line, one single solitary line in the sand. I remember the night perfectly. We were about 6 months in, sitting on the floor of his old apartment, surrounded by pizza boxes and laughing about some terrible sci-fi movie. The mood was light and perfect. Then, in a lull, his expression shifted, became serious. He started talking about his parents, how their marriage had been a 30-year-long Cold War. He described the air in their house as being thick with things unsaid, how his mother would chatter nervously to fill the silence, and his father would just disappear behind his newspaper, a wall of paper and ink. He said the loudest sound in their house was the sound of a slammed cabinet door in the kitchen, an explosion of anger that was never, ever discussed afterward. He looked at me then, and his eyes were so serious, so clear, it felt like he was looking straight into my soul. My mom spent her whole life trying to guess what my dad was thinking, and he spent his whole life punishing her for guessing wrong, he said, his voice quiet but firm. It was a prison of their own making, and I swore to myself I would never ever live like that. I can't function in that environment, it makes me feel like I'm suffocating. He took my hands in his grip warm and steady. Brielle, I can give you anything. Patience, support, all my time, all my love, but I can't do guessing games, I can't do tests. I can't live my life trying to solve a puzzle that my partner is actively creating for me. If something is wrong, you have to use your words and tell me, that's all I ask. It's the only thing I'll ever demand. Tears were in my eyes, not of sadness, but of profound relief. He was giving me the blueprint. He was telling me exactly how to love him. I looked him right in his beautiful, honest eyes and I promised him. I promised him I would never put him through that. It all started over something so small, so laughably insignificant, that it makes my stomach clench with shame to even think about it now. Jet was studying for his board certification exam, the final, massive hurdle to becoming a fully licensed doctor of physical therapy. This was his Super Bowl. For weeks, our apartment had been covered in flashcards and thick textbooks. He'd been so sweet about it, warning me that he'd be a study zombie and apologizing in advance for being distant. Just a few more weeks, Bri, he'd said, kissing my forehead, and then I'm all yours again. We'll take that trip to the coast. I knew how important it was. The logical part of my brain, the part that loved him and wanted him to succeed, was his biggest cheerleader. But then came Tuesday. Tuesday was our night. It wasn't an official anniversary, just a stupid little tradition we'd started. We'd order Thai food and watch a cheesy documentary. That Tuesday, I got home from work and he was just completely absorbed. He was at the dining table, surrounded by a fortress of books, muttering about nerve endings and muscle groups. He'd forgotten. When he finally looked up, hours later, the panic in his eyes was genuine. Oh my God, Bri, Tuesday, I'm so sorry. He rushed over, tried to hug me, his words tumbling out in a torrent of apology. And the reasonable part of my brain, the Brielle who loved this man, accepted it instantly. Of course, he forgot. He was under immense pressure. It was fine. But another part of me, a coiled, ugly snake of a thing that my ex had left behind, uncurled in my stomach. That voice, the one I thought I'd silenced, started whispering. He forgot. It wasn't important enough for him to remember. You're not important enough. This is how it starts. He's pulling away. So I started the test. It was a conscious decision, and that's what kills me. I watched myself do it. I became a performer in my own life. When he tried to hug me, I let my body go stiff. The next morning, when he texted me, "Morning beautiful, have a great day," read, I waited an hour and replied. When he asked what I wanted for dinner, I said, whatever. I was watching myself sabotage everything from a great height, hating the person I was being. I knew it was manipulative. I knew it was a game. I knew it was the one thing he had begged me not to do, but I couldn't stop. There was this sick, desperate, addicted part of me that needed to see him panic. I wanted him to see my pain without me having to speak it. I wanted him to throw his textbooks aside, to see the crisis in my silence, and to prove that I was more important than his career, his future, anything. I wanted him to chase me, to break down my walls, to earn his way back into his good graces for a crime he hadn't even intentionally committed. It was a pathetic, childish fantasy, and I was sacrificing our beautiful reality on its altar. My little Cold War lasted for 4 days. 4 days of one-word answers, of turning my shoulder to him in bed, of letting the air in our home grow thick and toxic. And yet, he didn't react the way I'd scripted it in my head. There was no panic, no grand gestures. Ryan would have either ignored me completely, escalating the silence, or exploded in a fit of rage. Jet just seemed confused, and then sad. I'd see him looking at me across the room with a deep, wounded puzzlement in his eyes. He tried, in his straightforward Jet way, "Bri, did I do something else? Is everything okay?" he'd ask. And I'd just shrug or say I'm just tired, feeding the lie, twisting the knife. Each time he asked, and each time I stonewalled him, I could see a little bit of light go out in his eyes. He wasn't chasing me, he was watching me build a wall between us, brick by miserable brick, and he didn't know why. The breaking point came on the fourth night, Friday. I was on the couch, pretending to watch a movie, radiating an Arctic chill. He finished studying earlier than usual, but instead of going to the bedroom to decompress, he pulled a dining chair around and sat directly in front of me, forcing me to look at him. His face was calm, but it was the calm of a deep, still lake right before a storm. All the warmth was gone. "You've been angry with me for days," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. My heart started hammering. This was it, the confrontation. I opened my mouth to deliver my usual infuriatingly vague lines. "I don't know what you're talking about, or if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you." But he didn't let me. He held up a hand, a quiet final gesture. "Please don't," he said, his voice soft but incredibly firm. "I know what this is. You're mad I forgot about Tuesday. I apologized for that, but this," he gestured to the space between us, the tense, miserable quiet. "This is a test, isn't it? You're waiting to see if I'll abandon my exam, spend days begging and pleading, trying to crack the code of your silence to figure out what I did wrong." I just stared at him, my throat completely dry. He saw right through me. "Brielle," he said, and my name on his lips sounded like a final breath. There was no anger in his voice, only a profound, bottomless disappointment that was 1,000 times worse. I told you this was my only red line. This isn't a game. It's a betrayal of the most basic respect and trust we're supposed to have for each other. I can't build a life with someone who, when they're hurt, chooses to lay a trap instead of just reaching for my hand. He let out a long, slow sigh, the sound of something inside him breaking. I'm so tired. Then he just stood up and walked into the bedroom. I heard the closet door slide open. I heard the distinct, awful sound of hangers being slid off the rack. There was no shouting, no crying, no slamming doors. Just the calm, quiet, methodical sound of him packing a bag. It wasn't a fight, it was a conclusion. The moment the front door clicked shut, it was like the puppet master in my brain cut my strings. The act was over. The cold, calculating persona I'd been wearing for 4 days dissolved, and I was just me again, Brielle, sitting in a deafeningly silent apartment, staring at the space where the man I loved used to be. The first wave of panic was so intense it felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. What had I just done? My phone was in my hand before I even consciously decided to grab it. I typed and deleted a dozen messages before sending the first pathetic one. Jet, wait, please come back, we need to talk. Delivered. The single gray checkmark felt like a judgment. I sent another, more desperate this time. I'm so sorry, I was being stupid, it was my trauma, not you, please. Delivered. Silence, I called him. It rang and rang, each tone an agonizingly long second, each one a nail in my coffin before clicking over to his voicemail. His voice, his happy, warm, recorded voice, was a cruel joke. Hey, you've reached Jet, leave a message. I left a rambling, tearful one, my words tripping over each other in a cascade of regret, then another, and another. By midnight, I had sent a dozen texts and left 5 voicemails, my digital pleas echoing in a void. He must have blocked my number around 1 a.m. because my last call didn't even ring. It just ended. The next day, I called my best friend, Sasha, expecting a symphony of sympathy. I needed her to tell me he was overreacting, that he'd come back. I sobbed the whole story out to her, the test, the confrontation, the packing, the silence. I painted myself as the tragic victim of my own trauma, a passenger in a runaway car of my own making. But when I was done, there was just a long, heavy pause on the other end of the line. Sasha, are you there? I asked, my voice small. Yeah, I'm here, she finally said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. Bryce, seriously, what the hell did you think was going to happen? You knew that was his one non-negotiable, his one deal breaker. A man who literally gave you the instruction manual on how to have a healthy relationship with him, and you used it to build a bomb. Her words weren't mean, just brutally, painfully honest. It's like you were holding a winning lottery ticket and you decided to set it on fire just to see if it would burn. Well, congratulations, it burned. Her bluntness was a shock to my system, a bucket of ice water that snapped me out of my self-pity. She was right, this wasn't a tragedy that had befallen me. It was a consequence I had actively, meticulously engineered. The true gut punch, the moment that shattered the last of my delusional hope, came a few days later. I was trying to clean, a desperate attempt to impose some kind of order on the chaos of my life. I started boxing up the things he'd left behind. I picked up a heavy physical therapy textbook from the bookshelf, one he'd called his Bible. As I lifted it, a small, folded receipt fluttered out from between the pages and landed on the floor. I picked it up, it was from a small, independent jewelry store downtown. A place we'd window shopped at once, months ago, where I'd pointed out a simple, elegant ring I loved. My eyes scanned the details, my blood turning to ice. The date was from 3 weeks ago. The item description read, custom sizing adjustment vintage solitaire ring. My breath hitched in my chest. I sank to the floor, the flimsy piece of paper trembling in my hand. He hadn't forgotten about our future, he hadn't been pulling away. While I was busy plotting my stupid, childish loyalty test, consumed by manufactured insecurities and ghosts of boyfriends past, he was quietly, seriously planning the rest of our lives. The ring was probably tucked away somewhere in his parents' house now, waiting for a moment that would never come. And I, in my infinite, self-destructive wisdom, had torched it all. I hadn't just pushed him away, I had desecrated something sacred. It's been a month now, a long, hollow month. The moving company Jet hired came last week while I was at work. I came home to find the last of his things gone, the worn leather armchair, the bookshelf he built himself, the framed photo of us on the coast that used to sit on my nightstand. He didn't want to see me, he didn't want a final, tearful conversation. He just wanted a clean extraction, and he got it. The apartment is just mine now, and it feels too big, too empty. The silence is no longer just an absence of sound, it's the only thing left. My life has ground to a halt, my work is suffering, I barely eat. My friends try to drag me out, but the effort of pretending to be okay is too exhausting. So I stay in and I engage in my new singular hobby, online archaeology. Pathological, obsessive, soul-destroying archaeology. Jet's own social media has been a dead end. He's private on everything, and I'm sure he's double-checked his privacy settings. But that doesn't stop me. I've become a digital ghost, haunting the profiles of our mutual friends, his siblings, his cousins I met once at a barbecue. I spend hours scrolling, my thumb aching, my eyes burning, searching for any sign of him. A tag in a photo, a comment on a post, anything. Most days I find nothing. But the hunt itself is the addiction. It's a way to feel close to him, even if it's a sick, one-sided illusion. Tonight I hit the jackpot, or maybe I hit rock bottom. His sister posted a photo album from a friend's backyard party. My heart pounded as I clicked through. There were pictures of kids, of food, of decorations. And then there he was. In the seventh photo, he was standing in a group, holding a beer, talking to someone just out of frame. He's lost weight. There are faint shadows under his eyes, but he's smiling. It's a real smile, not a forced one, the kind that crinkles the corners of his eyes, the kind he used to give me when I'd walk into a room, that smile. It doesn't feel like a sign of hope. It feels like a weapon aimed directly at my chest. It tells me he's moving on, he's healing. He's living a life that no longer includes me, and he is capable of smiling within it. My fingers hover over the keyboard. I type out a comment under the photo, my hands shaking. He looks happy. Then I delete it. I type out a direct message to his sister. Can you please just tell him I'm sorry? Delete. 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 Finally, I just open a new message to his blocked number, a message I know he'll never see. I type, I miss you so much. I just stare at the words on the screen, the three little words that mean everything and change nothing. The pale blue light of the phone illuminates the tear tracks on my face. Sasha was wrong. This isn't a fire I set that has now burned out. This is a hell of my own creation, and I'm just beginning to understand the eternity of its flames.